Welcome to the show, Anna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we met like 5 years ago when I lived in LA and at
hmm
26 and Broad.
Yep, those were the days.
Those were the day. I've had like, I don't know, five or six people on here from that meeting.
Mhm. Really? That's so
Yeah.
cool that you still keep in contact with them. That's good.
Yeah, it's the same with like you. I find that keeping in contact with people, even though like my recovery date has changed, my like sober date has changed since then. And like I use cannabis daily, so my recovery looks different from a lot of people's recoveries.
Yeah.
Um, I still like I just saw Jules the other day, last week.
Jules.
Jules
That was,
Muck,
yes, yes, yes. Love her. Love her.
graffiti artist,
hmm
and I used to go to meetings in her front yard in Venice.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I do remember. I remember that.
it was like
She
eight
used to
o'clock
do that.
every Saturday night.
hmm
So, but yeah, we're still in touch all the time. She literally, I live in the middle of nowhere in PA, but the main
hmm
highway to go from New York City to anywhere goes through our town.
hmm
So whenever she's going to New York, she stops off the highway and hangs out for the night, and we'll go to a meeting and chill or whatever.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Jules is still doing great. She's got like 8 years now. Some
Wow, that's good for her. What state are you living in again?
I'm in Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere now.
Pennsylvania. Nice.
Like I'm 2.5 hours from where I grew up outside of Philly,
The
and
accent, 2.5.
yeah, two and that's really funny. I have an accent. I know.
Yeah, most definitely. And you just got married
I got married about 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, it was in our living room.
Oh, that's amazing. Was it COVID wedding?
Yep,
Nice.
yep, yeah, it was nice and easy. And speaking of accents, you're not from LA either.
Yeah, so I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Technically Dunwoody. It's like a small town right outside of Atlanta.
Yeah, I say
So
Philly, but really it was a small 1 square mile town, like 15 minutes from Philly.
yeah, because no one's gonna know what you mean when you say that you're from like a certain
Yeah,
small part.
exactly.
Yeah.
You born and raised there?
Yep, I was in Northside Hospital, if anybody knows it. And yeah,
Side
I
house.
loved it there. It's like a small town, like coming from a small town. I think that gives a lot of like susceptibility to get introduced to like alcohol and stuff at a very early age, just because there's not much like to do. But we also have the influence from the big city, right there. So it's very easy to like.
So when were you introduced?
Um, like in high school for sure. I remember in middle school there were kids that like used to smoke weed and do all that, but I used to be one of those kids that was like, I would never, like that's crazy. And my mom was also an alcoholic, and it actually ended up she took her own life when I was 12. Just like she couldn't do it anymore. She like fought the battle, and you know, it won. But I remember because of that, I used to think I would never. I was like, I'm never going to be that person. But then in high school, my group of friends was very, they loved to drink, like it was like the party group. And like, it was cool and it was fun. And the parents would let us use the basements. But that's kind of when I got introduced to that, really.
How did you take that at 12 years old? Like that's like a lot to like I've had my ex-fiance committed suicide and I know I
Mm.
didn't take it well, so I can't imagine if it was a parent like
Yeah, it was, I mean, like obviously it was crazy. And I think today I still process, like, I take my time processing it. It's always, I think it's going to be kind of like a lifelong thing I'm figuring out. But I think when I was 12, I couldn't fully understand, like, I just didn't really understand what was going on. So for me, I think I kind of dissociated at that point, to make it easier to get through it.
did you have any brothers or sisters?
No, I'm an only child. So that was like, which I loved because, everything was about me. But in that moment, I would have loved to have somebody to go through that with.
Well, I was gonna yeah, I mean so it's just you and your dad then from
I remember that was the first thing I actually said to him. Sorry, there's some noise. I can close the window if it gets too loud. But my dad, I remember the first thing I said to him was like, "So it's just you and me now?"
So now you discovered drinking. Did you go right into smoking weed too?
Um, I think it took me a bit longer to do the smoking thing because I think, when you first smoke and you're in high school, like it's intense. And and so I remember the first time I smoked, I think was I had smoked with somebody before school, like in their bathroom before we walked to the bus. And I remember I didn't like hold it in. I didn't know how to smoke. So like I didn't get high, but I acted like it just because you're in high school. Like,
You need to be cool.
yeah, it was cool. But then the first time I actually did smoke and get high was like probably at this it was a party that these seniors held. And I was invited because like I've always been a very sociable person. And so I remember I smoked with them, and these kids have been smoking probably all of high school. So they're like used to it. And it's like my first time, and I just remember I was done. Yeah.
Now, how long does it take you to discover anything besides drugs and drugs or like weed?
So that actually happened around the same age. Like, so I want to say my sophomore year is when I really like started drinking with my friends for fun. And then I think by that summer, things were getting a little bit crazier. There's this place called East Cobb, which is like not where the I was in Dunwoody, and then there's East Cobb, and these kids were like really rich, nice homes, and like that song "Super Rich Kids" by Frank Ocean. That's like how I felt like their lives were, and so they just their parents like had a lot of money, but they could pretty much do whatever they wanted, and that's when I got introduced to Xanax because my friend Lexi, and I looked up to her too. I thought she was so cool and everything. She got sent off this boarding school, and it was just like, you know what I mean? She just had this vibe that like I think I admired for some sick reason, and so I started to do Xanax with her this summer going into my junior year.
That's a rough time to be introduced to Xanax because you're in school, and what's the thing that Xanax makes you do the most? Black out and forget shit.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to learn on?
Exactly. Or even like just my relationships with people. It was like I remember specifically the first time I did it, I took it and I felt like what I felt in my body was like, oh my God, like this is it. Like I don't care what these people think of me. I don't feel like I have to be or do anything. Like I just felt everything just flowed a lot easier for me. I just did not care as much. And so it's like what I had been looking to feel forever. And I found it when I took that. And so, but then I remember like being in the car with my friends, and I'd be like, what are we doing? Like, where are we going? They would tell me, and like literally less than 5 minutes later, I'm like, wait, where are we going? And like, it was like a running joke that they used to be like, bitch, like, come on, can't remember anything.
That's what I mean, because Xanax, it does make you black out, and a lot of the times, do shit that you wouldn't normally do, like steal. Like I always stole when I was on Xanax.
Still, I said the most outlandish things to the people I love the most. Like, I cringe inside thinking back on the things that I used to say to my dad.
I'm not surprised at all though either, because like I remember I went to high school, to a Catholic school my first year. My mom had gone to that school, and my aunts and uncle, they all went to that school. So my mom asked me to go once, and I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I went there, and I remember going to their parties because like I had already started drinking when I was 12. So by the time
Oh
like
wow.
seventh and eighth grade, I had started smoking cigarettes by freshman year. So like I was smoking Black and Milds in seventh and eighth grade. I
Oh.
learned I learned how to inhale with a Black and Mild. Like
So the first time you smoked weed, you knew what you were doing.
yeah, exactly. I knew how to inhale by then because I was already smoking cigarettes by then. I was smoking cigarettes before I was even smoking weed. I didn't
Hmm.
smoke weed until like 15, something like that. But
Yeah.
drinking was always my thing. And
Hmm.
partying and going out. Like I had older friends, but when I went to this school, it was everybody was bussed in. They all lived like 20 minutes away, which might as well be
Hmm.
forever when you live in a bunch of small towns. 20 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
And it was like this really rich area that they all come from, and so many people I went to school with eventually passed away because of heroin. because you started out with the pills, like you said, Xanax. And did it ever escalate from there, or were you mostly like a zany, barred out girl?
So from high school up until like kind of like that summer, my senior year, I'm pretty sure I had stopped doing it so much. But Xanax was always one of the ones that stuck with me forever. You know what I mean? Like that was my one true like, oh my God, like I love this shit. But it was also I really did hate what it did to me, like, and how it made me treat other people. So when I moved out to, I went to college in University of Colorado at Boulder, and so there, I would say like in terms of Xanax, there it was very very few and far between. Like it was not something that people were doing. It wasn't like a common thing. There were like a few dealers in my dorm, maybe one dealer in my dorm, and like other than that, people used to like to drink and smoke weed and stuff. You know, like normal college kids should do.
Yeah.
And so when I got there, though, my drinking really, really took off. Like that's when, because I had so much trauma I hadn't dealt with at all, and then just got thrown into alone and halfway across the country, more so than half, but way across the country.
What made you go
And
to college?
when where?
What made you want to go to Boulder?
I never wanted to stay in Georgia. I knew that from the jump. Like it's so weird, and I think I just never felt I because of what happened to me at a young age. Also, my mom was handicapped when we were growing up. She was extremely intelligent, but she had cerebral palsy. So people, you know, growing up with her, I was used to people staring, you know, it was being different. I never felt like I belonged. And then when that happened with my mom, it made me feel even more different. Like I was like, this is just not like I can't relate to you guys. You know what I mean? And like everyone's parents were married and they have these big houses and like I'm just like, you know, my mom taught at the schools, so I was popular in that sense. People knew me, but like I never felt like they understood me really, you know.
So why Boulder? Why college? You
Oh yeah,
could
sorry. So Boulder, I left because I was like, I really tried to come to California. I wanted to come out to California, but these schools are incredibly hard to get into. And I was a very average student growing up, like a 3.5, you know, nothing bad, but nothing crazy.
I mean, you're doing
So
Xanax all the time. How are you supposed to remember? I bet you didn't do Xanax. You'd be getting straight A's.
probably, so that probably did have a lot to do with that. And also, so I chose to just go, I wanted to go out of state in general just to get out of like Georgia. I always knew that. But I really do think that Colorado and California had that like weed appeal to me. I was such a stoner in high school. So I was like, oh my God, like that's so cool. Like I just really loved the idea of being in a place like that. You know what I mean? It felt like I would meet like-minded people, which, you know, I did, which was good and bad because everyone, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I chose that school and it was really fun and crazy. But my first year there was like, I got in trouble for alcohol like multiple times. They ended up putting me in like one of those classes for like alcohol abuse. And like, it was making me like lose my mind, literally. Like I was going crazy. So one morning I woke up and was like, I'm done. I have to go to, you know, I applied to SMC out here. And yeah.
So because you were so bad with drinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And it made my mental health really bad. I had a boyfriend at the time living from Georgia, but lived in California now. And he, you know, it was pretty toxic, but, you know, it was young love, you know. So he was living out here and he kind of encouraged me, like, to just, maybe you should just come be with at least somebody you know that loves you and that you feel safe around, you know, because I had just started to lose my mind with the alcohol. I was like getting very suicidal, and so yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how long were you in those classes for? Like, did you actually get anything out of those classes?
No, those I was in such a state of mind. Like I saw a therapist and I was talking just about how I felt, and they were like, "Well, have you tried like stopping drinking?" I'm like, "Why? That has nothing to do with this." I was like, "I'm just like miserable," and like
Mm.
it's all these other issues. You know what I mean? Like so, and
When
then I think,
to
huh?
California? How old were
When
you in California?
uh, 19.
Oh, so you were only there for like a year then, right?
I stayed there for the whole year, and then I was like, had had bought in a house, or like had signed a down payment on this house I was going to live in with these girls next year. And I like thought to myself, like, if I live here another year, like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. And so I made the decision. I was like, fuck it, I'm leaving. You know, I'm going to pack my bags and go to California with my boyfriend.
And we're gonna live happily ever after.
And yes,
Gonna go wrong.
Exactly. And now I'm single. He's married to someone, not me. But
So
it did get me out here to California, where I love it here.
yeah, it's amazing.
But that was not the end of my story, for sure, moving here.
Well, no, I was gonna ask you. So you moved now to California, and you're in southern beautiful California, and the weather's always nice. Like, you had gone bad with drinking, and now you decide to uproot your life again, more across the country. Now to live literally across the country from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
How does your drinking progress?
So that kind of started, like when I got to California, there was like, I'm running away from my problems and going to different places, right? Like, so I'm thinking, okay, well, once I'm here, it'll be a lot better. Once this or that, it'll be a lot better. And so I'm gonna move around, close my door. But so when I got here, it was like the relationship had become so toxic because of all the things that I had done, while I was in Boulder. You know what I mean? Because like our relationship just kind of was really damaged by my addiction, and like, you know, just I was crazy, I was selfish. It was just, I was in no place to be like a good girlfriend, you know? So when I got out here, it was pretty hard because I was continuing to drink. And then, like, of course, the Coke scene in LA, I got really introduced to that. My bosses at work were doing it. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, okay. And I'm like, I was like a yes man. So if somebody's offering me something, I'm probably going to do it. And I got really into that, and that made my mental health even worse. So, and I was also still finding places to buy Xanax and hiding it from my boyfriend. And he knows me so well, like I couldn't hide it from him.
That's
So
the worst
he,
part of Xanax is Xanax are so cheap that it's easy to just like buy them in bulk and then
mm-hmm.
'cause I think the most expensive I've ever seen Xanax were like $5 for a bar, and you can buy 20 of them and be good for a couple days, depending
Yeah,
on what you're using. But I'm saying you and I, because I
yeah,
love Xanax too, would go through 20 of them in 2 days and not even think twice about it.
yeah, and be like, what? Like, where did all my bars go? I love that one. It's like, who
Yeah,
the fuck stole my bars? Bitch,
yeah.
you took them.
It's like that meme of like Herman in the hood, like looking right at you, like it's you. You were the problem.
Yeah. And so when that, so throughout that happening, he pretty much told me, like, if you don't get it together, like, I'm done. And he was like the only person in my life at that point that I felt safe. Like, he was my everything. Like, I really thought we were gonna get married and be together forever after we, you know, worked through everything. And so I was like, okay, fine, like, I'll get sober. And that's how I started going to AA. And yeah, that was like a couple, that was probably like a 5 year long journey throughout all that.
What, through AA?
Yeah, there's just AA, and then, you know, I went to a sober living, but multiple IOPs before that, and then IOPs after the sober living. You know what I mean? Just like a lot of treatment in 5 years, like trying to just get it right, you know?
Were you living in treatment when you were going to 26 and Broad when we first met?
No, I was still living in that apartment with my ex-boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
But we
It's
were like separated, but like it was just a terrible situation.
it's just cheaper to live together.
Yeah. We're like, well, and we're best friends too, so it was, you know, it was yeah, it was interesting. But that's where I was living when I went to 26 and Broadway. And then I moved to another apartment with this girl who was big in the party club scene, so Coke took off there. But while I was in AA, I met a girl who I really liked. Oh yeah, by the way, like, I'm bisexual, which I didn't know until I moved out here.
Well, you learn things.
Yeah. Exactly. So I met this girl there who I was like, oh my God, I have to know her. Da, 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 da. And I got to know her, and she was a real deal heroin addict. Like, I'd never met anyone like that. My friends had done drugs and stuff, but like pill popping and like, you know what I mean? Like, that stuff didn't even seem real to me. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, people do that, like for real.
And then find the AA.
Yep, exactly.
So you met a girl in AA?
hmm Yeah, her name was Daisha. She's passed away since, which is why I don't feel bad saying her name and everything now. But she was like, we got very, very close, and she and I, it was romantic as well. After time and stuff, like it got romantic. I was in love with her for sure, but that's where I got introduced to shooting heroin.
So how old were you at this point? Because
I'm
like,
like 21, 22 years old, probably like 22, 21.
okay, so this was like you went from, okay, I'm doing Xanax and drinking. Okay, I'm drinking really hard and I'm doing Xanax here and there,
And
to,
some coke here and there, yeah.
and then here's California, here's Coke, here's Xanax, which couldn't be any more different from each other. One completely brings you up while the other, I understand how the thinking is, one brings you eventually down again.
Yeah.
I where the mind is, but they're still two totally different drugs. And then you get sober for how long?
So that it was is interesting because I still smoked weed and I had no idea about anything in the rooms at that point and didn't really even stop doing the weed part until I was in a rehab where they drug tested me and I was like, okay, well, because for me, like personally, weed was never I never like overdid it or like wasn't able to do my things on weed. You know what I mean? Weed was always something that I kind of thought would always, I was like, that's just there. These are the things I need to really focus on. So
Weed's
that
the
was kind of about it.
bystander. Weed has always been like the innocent bystander. Like, if you're watching
Yeah.
cops and they bust down someone's door, they're like, "Oh my God, he has cocaine and heroin, and he has some weed." Like that, they're never like no girl has ever called in the police station saying, "You gotta stop my boyfriend. He just smoked a blunt. Now he's hitting me."
Yeah.
Like that never happens with weed. Alcohol, yeah. Drugs, yeah, but never with weed.
Exactly. So I struggled a lot with that.
This podcast is also sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are looking for therapy and not able to get something right away locally, you can do that with them. Within 48 hours, you can find a therapist to get on telehealth with you. I mean, I haven't heard anything but great things from people that have already done it, that watch my show or listen to my show. If you're looking to get 10% off your first month, you can go to betterhelp.com/MJ's PNPMCA. That is betterhelp.com/MJ's PNPMCA.
What I knew was true for me and what others like tried to insist and like tried to bust into my head like it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. So for about 5 years I did that struggle, like power struggle of like, well, am I doing it wrong? And like, you know what I mean? Like I think just at the age I was at too, my brain wasn't fully developed. I'm 27 now. And I started thinking this way around 25 that like I don't need your way of doing things for me to be okay. Like because me trying to do it this way is not working for me either. This is too black and white for me, like it's just not how I operate. It's not how it's going to get anything productive done for me. So now, like these past few years, I think can't say I've been perfect. No way. Because I had a slip up maybe a year and a half ago where I was like taking these little blue Roxy pills, but they were making me so sick. Like I not like I was withdrawing. It was like while I was on them, I was so physically ill. I could not do anything.
Where is it? Fentanyl?
I don't know exactly. All I know is like my body was rejecting it completely.
You could just
And
be allergic. You could honestly just be allergic to the oxycodone family, because it would be different from heroin, but it's not as in, because like I was addicted to Roxy 30s, the exact one you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
and they never made me feel sick when I did them. And so that tells me that either you're really allergic or it was fentanyl.
Mm.
fentanyl press 30s, if it was an M30, it's
Mhm.
most likely it was fentanyl inside of it, because the drug dealers know that the M30s were the most not to get too into it, but like roxycodone is made by 5 or 6 different companies,
Mhm.
and always was a different imprint. So if you're an addict, you had to know all the imprints, so you know
Yeah.
what you're getting wasn't fake or anything like that. Um,
Exactly.
so you had to know all the generic brands. I would lived on pillidentifier.com. Like, is it a circle? Is it round? What color is it? Like, you had
Mhm.
to select it all, and it told you what it was. Um, but now all the fentanyl pills that are being produced as M30s. Where
Yeah.
all blue, they look like 30 milligram roxycodones, but really they're laced with fentanyl, and they make you sick right away because it makes you
Mm.
need more and more. So I don't know, either you're allergic, or a year and a half ago, fentanyl pills were coming around.
I think that's probably what it was, because like I can't say I trusted the people or the person. I was talking to this guy who did them, and I just would do them with him. And then, but I'm kind of grateful for that, because it made me so sick. I was like, literally, this is not even worth it. Like, I'm having maybe like 5 minutes of like, and then it's like I'm just sick.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
you
so yeah,
stop.
but huh?
When did you stop with heroin then? Like, how did you start and stop with that?
So that I was getting really bad, and like I was obviously lying to everyone about it. And my I was going to meetings still, because there was something in me, like I knew I needed help, but I was gonna die type shit. Like, this wasn't just like, oh, I'm like drinking a little too much. Like, no, like I'm doing things that I'm like, at this point I had overdosed twice already. One time I went missing for like 3 days, and my dad couldn't find me, and like he really chalked it up. Like, he was like, next time I hear about her, she's gonna be dead, like probably, because my phone was somewhere running around downtown. Like, I don't know what happened. I went and shot heroin in this guy's car, and then ended up gone for 3 days. I have no memory still of anything that happened. But when they found me naked on 6th and Alvarado, which is like Skid Row, and they found me there naked on the street, like overdosing. I guess just I don't know what was happening to me, but I think someone threw me out of a car. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds like. It maybe called 9. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did a test on me, and I had every single drug known to man in my system. Like, it was ridiculous. And I was in the ICU for days. I had to learn how to walk again, like for a few days. I had a catheter. Like, it was bad. And so after that, I kind of still couldn't really stop. I kind of got scared a little bit, but then would do it again. So I was like, my sponsor told me too. She was like, I'm not, or not my sponsor, this woman I wanted to work with me was like, I'm not going to do it unless you're in a facility, because you can't trust yourself. I can't trust you to not go home and get high at night. And it was just like the truth. So I went to Transcend Sober Living, and I committed a whole entire year of my life to that. Like, before I went in, we paid for the whole year. And so that's kind of what saved my life, really, and got me separated from living that way. I needed a physical separation and somebody to literally baby me and be like, no, like, no.
That makes sense, though. I mean, because did you stay the whole year?
I did. And I had a few slip ups while I was there, but very minor. Like, on Halloween, I smoked some weed. And on around December, I had like actually 8 months sober. And I ended up like getting drunk at a concert. That because they trusted me, and they were like, yeah, you can go to this 2-day festival. And I was like, ooh, here we go. And so I came home, and I immediately told them, like, we need to talk. Like, I fucked up this weekend. So, but it's still like, it wasn't I still didn't really let that get me down in terms of like what that place did for me, because that is nothing compared to like where I was like what I was living and what I was doing to myself. Like, yeah, it completely changed my mindset, you know?
Yeah, and Skid Row is not really. I had a guy on here who lived on Skid Row for 7 years. I know, that's what I said. I said, how did you like get by daily, like living there? Like, how did you get high daily?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, I was a clean cut young in my 20s, so I just stood at Union Station asking for money to get back home to my parents. and say that my wallet was stolen, so I didn't have any money or anything like that. So people would just give me, and I would make 20, $30 an hour, and I would make $30. I would go get high, and I would come back and do it again. Make $30, go get high, come back, do it again.
Wow, what a life. Like, that's so crazy. Wow.
He's like, then I get good. Then I was like, yeah, but you're on drugs, so you have to like eventually look like you're on drugs. He was
Yeah,
like,
it's gonna.
he's like, then I got good at stealing, and I met all these like fences. You know what a fence is? A
Offense?
fence is somebody that you take stolen merchandise to. If you like rob a jewelry store, you
Okay.
can't go pawn it because you're gonna. Well, that's what I tried to do. I stole a bunch of jewelry once and I pawned it at the pawn shop around the corner. And obviously the cops went right to that pawn shop being like, were these items sold to you? Let me get the identification because it's Xanax.
Yeah.
Made me steal. And I was in a blackout. I don't remember stealing anything. I don't remember the pawn shop. All I remember is getting arrested and a long car ride back to I didn't go to prison. I ended up getting out as soon as they took me in. My dad bailed me out right away. So like I didn't have to go to county or anything, but I was close. If he didn't make it there on time, like
Yeah.
Xanax makes you steal.
Yeah.
So would you have a sober date today?
I do not, because I don't when I kind of just this is how the best way for me to explain it, because today what it looks like for me is like I still smoke weed and I still like drink casually with my friends,
Yeah.
but like I don't like drugs. For me are like a big hard no. What they do to my mental, like I'm no longer willing to put myself through that, you know what I mean? Like,
Let me ask you this though, because I've had people on here that drink casually too, and they just smoke weed, but they're clean from heroin or clean from pills or clean from coke. How long have you been clean from like drugs? And I'm not considering alcohol or weed as drugs.
yeah. I would say it's been like about a year at this point, because like I remember last summer was really hard for me. I went through like an abusive relationship with this girl, and I had to go to like court and like get a restraining order and all that. So like through that, I was like, it was really like I found myself kind of like falling back into old habits. I just was it was a hard thing to go through, you know?
When
And then
did your ex pass away?
when did what?
When did your ex pass away?
Oh, no. She didn't. I said I had to get a restraining order. She was.
No, I meant like
Oh,
the
Daisha.
yeah,
She passed away in February, like right when I was in the middle of going through all that. It was like right at the beginning of me going through all that. So like February of like 2 years ago, I think. And so it took me about another like 6 months to a year to go through all the court thing and do all that with my ex, like the one that was abusive. And then, but through that, I remember I almost like missed the court date because I think I'd like done Xanax the night before because I was so anxious because I had to sit in court with her. But like since I've dealt with all that, I've genuinely like have not felt the need to. I don't like what it does to me. I like being able to like do my yoga and like, take my classes, but like it's so easy to get caught up in a lifestyle like of that, the party and fun.
go skating.
Yeah. Also, so the things that I do too is like that really helped me today. Yoga and meditation for me has been like really big lately, especially like this past month. I've been really focusing a lot on like my physical body because I just want to feel good. I don't want to feel like I need something. And so like just being like really mindful and present and like trying to learn how to come home to myself.
I feel like you and skating have so much in common because in your addiction, you have to fall and get back up, fall and get back up, and then try it again, try it again. Eventually, it's going to stick the landing. But skating's the same thing. You're just going to keep falling and falling and falling for your first like 6 months to a year, and then eventually you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And be easy. And I feel like your recovery looks the same way as your skating looks.
Absolutely. I actually, being like skating in Venice, you see a lot of people have cameras around. Everyone's always trying to film something there. And right when I started skating there, somebody asked if I would answer like a question that I like about skateboarding, like why do I love it? Or why do I love the community and the culture? And that was my reason. Like it's such a good metaphor for life, you know, like you have to try, these people are here hours all day long trying one thing just so they can land it for the one time, or like, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it's just like it's inspiring too. I think it kind of like the values of it like spill into my everyday life. And
That's
like that's the same thing with like working out and like meditation and stuff, like being able to push through when I don't feel like it and doing things when I don't feel like it, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad that you're at where you're at and casually drink if it's not a. You seem like you're on top of things more now to where
Hmm.
you're more mindful. Like, oh, am I overdoing that maybe too much, or should I pull back the reins on that a little bit?
Exactly, because I cannot say that everything is perfect and like like seamless, nothing ever is, but like the way that I approach the situations now and the way that I'm kind of stop and think, and I think a lot of it does have to do with like brain development too, and like being that I chose like the perfect time to go to rehab before these habits got so deeply ingrained in me that there would be like it'd be a lot harder to change the way that I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I was, like I said, I started drinking at an early age, but by 22, I was bored with it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I discovered Roxy's, the
Mm-hmm.
Roxy Codone, and I was addicted to them until I was 31.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I haven't touched a pill in 5.5 years, but my
Mm-hmm.
sobriety is 3.5 years ago. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, because I felt those bad feelings, like I'm smoking and I'm in an AA meeting, and people, like, I was in a really conservative area. It wasn't like Santa Monica where it was like, oh, it's okay if you smoke a little weed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
well, like they wouldn't even give me a 1 year chip at my
Mm.
group because they were like, you still use cannabis. Well, they didn't say cannabis, they said weed because they're
Yeah.
not cultured. Uh, but I was like, fuck this place. And then on my 13th month sober, I drank again. And
Mm.
it took me 9 months before I had a new sober date. And I wasn't drinking out of control in those 9 months. I was drinking here and there, like going to a show, going just to hang out for them, watching movies. It wasn't like an all day kind of drinking. And then I woke up hungover on Leap Day.
Mm.
And it was the first time I'd been hungover in those 9 months. So it was the first time in years that I woke up hungover. And I said to my wife, like, either we got to quit today or I got to start drinking soon. And
Mm.
rather quit because Leap Day is an awesome sober date to have. So we
That
both,
is.
yeah, we haven't celebrated a whole year yet technically, but in February of this year, we'll both have 4 years.
Oh, that's amazing you guys chose to do it together.
Yeah, and I
That's so
know,
cool.
like, I know that I can get through shit being sober now. Like before,
Mm.
I can't imagine going through anything sober before. Like when you start at such a young age, like you said, you're so ingrained with this, and but it's been like a lot of therapy
Yeah.
and that helps too, and actually going through the steps helped, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
um, I'm not active really, like I'll go if like Jules is in town, like, hey, go to a meeting with me, but like I'm not like active in going to meetings around here.
Yeah.
Just I can never feel like I can be myself, my
Mm-hmm.
like true authentic self, because they're like, yeah, but you smoke weed. It's like, yeah, but I don't smoke weed all day every day. Like,
Exactly. And like that's just something that I think a lot of people won't, and that's why the rooms were very hard for me, because there is no one way for people to do it. And like it makes it very discouraging, the whole process discouraging if somebody is like nitpicking at just what works for you.
yeah, my sponsor knew that I used it in LA, but I
Hmm.
was so afraid to get a new sponsor in Pennsylvania because I didn't want them to tell me that all your sober time is gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, because once they did tell me they weren't going to give me that year, then I could have went to another meeting. I could have not drank just to spite them. But at the end of the day, I'm an alcoholic, and
Hmm.
I'm like, no, I'll show them. And the first time I drank again, I bought a 6-pack of Twisted Tea because I'm gonna.
Love twisted teas.
And I only drank 4, and then I dumped 2 down the sink, just to
Mm.
spite. You know how they say like you always have to finish a drink, like you can never like any drink you walk by, you have to finish it. I
Hmm.
wanted to prove to them that I didn't have to finish the whole 6-pack and I was fine. I wasn't proving shit to anybody.
Yeah.
Like nobody was watching me. Nobody
Hmm.
was doing, so it didn't matter anyway. It was just all an excuse to drink again. And I try casually drinking like you do, and I
Hmm.
can't do it. But I
Yeah.
know plenty of people that can. And I think that you're at a young enough age that you're 27 now.
Yeah.
So you're at a young enough age to where you did stop all the bullshit. You learned all your lessons, and now you know more about yourself. And yoga and meditation is going to continue to teach you shit daily about yourself.
Yeah, that's why I really enjoy it too, because, like you just don't know what you don't know. And like I lived in that place for so long, but it's like I wasn't trying to know anything else. I was scared if I learned anything that I would have to live a different way. You know what I mean? It's like I was not ready to let go of that old way
Yeah.
of myself. And so I think that meditation and yoga and like all that kind of stuff. I'm not like a huge like yogi and all that, but
Yeah.
I also have sciatica, which has been acting up really bad just today. And the yoga, it does help just with my body, like just taking care of my body, you know what I mean? I've tried like when I prioritize that, it just like makes the other option seem almost like it's not an option anymore, for me.
Yeah. I think that's going to be really healthy for you going forward as like a new thing. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today. And like
Yes.
obviously like knew each other from the rooms or whatever, but
Yeah.
I didn't know your whole story or
Mm.
anything like that. So it's nice to sit down and talk and get more information on old Anna.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. I feel like I get imposter syndrome and I'm like, oh no, was it terrible? You know what I mean? I don't want to like.
No, because there's a lot of people out there that can still casually drink and they still smoke, but they're away from their drug of choice.
Mm.
And I'm all about like progress, not perfection. So like it's showing different stories. I wouldn't want, I have like 130 episodes out, and I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want them to all be the same thing regurgitated the same way.
Yeah.
I would find that boring as a listener. I want to hear the different ways people are in recovery. Whether your recovery looks like, no, I don't do anything and that's it, final period,
Mm-hmm.
then that's fine. If your recovery looks like it has weed in it, cool. If you it doesn't matter to me. Everyone has their own way of doing it. It's not one size fits all. And
Exactly. I think,
I
yeah.
that's why I wanted you on, because you do have a different story. You do have a different way that you're working in recovery. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, and
appreciate.
I think a lot of it comes just with like my quality of life. Like if I focus on that and not so much on like not doing this and not doing that, and I focus on like how can I live like the best quality of life, like that just allows my brain to like focus on more healthier things.
That's awesome. You're awesome. Thank you again. I
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate it. Have a good night, Anna.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk soon.